Welcome to my show. It's a guest here. His name is Kevin Hughes. Mr. Kelvin, how are you doing, sir?
Very good. Pleasure to be on with you there, Timmy.
All right, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity, Mr. Kelvin. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a Navy veteran and a consultant. Can you please, Mr. Kelvin, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mr.
Yeah,
Kelvin?
yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, just first-time author, the book Sociomom, which we'll be talking about. I live in Eastern North Carolina. Lived here for 3 years, originally from Central Virginia area. I retired from, the consulting side of UPS in 2024 after 37 years. I am married to my wife Susan, and I have two adult daughters. And I have a chocolate lab named Winston that is my our child at home now. He's my friend and therapy dog. I 24 after 37 years from a Fortune 5 company in the consulting side there in logistics and consulting. And I spent the last 4 years plus working on this book, Sociomom, which just released a few weeks ago.
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Kevin. In a life that someone had a very huge damage in the childhood is definitely not easy. And it is very inspiring for you to bring it into a book to definitely help others, to inspire others, to definitely learn one or two things and be experienced when it comes to abuse, when it comes to a person being a child. And that is why I would like to dive to the point of social mom. Can you please, Mr. Kelvin, discuss more on that book? And do you plan to write more book in the coming future, Mr. Kevin?
Another book, this quite took a lot out of it, but Sociomom talks is a memoir of my life. I was raised by a diagnosed sociopath, my mother, that abused to the level of all levels to that the age of 4, I actually psychologically dissociated to survive, which means I existed, but I really just was disconnected from a reality and didn't remember any of this, clearly until I was in my around close to 50 years old, where a work incident, working with someone that kind of somehow triggered that reminded me of my mother, brought up all these memories. I went through and recounted and worked through all the abuse and the other things through therapy. And the book really talks about that journey, how, we try to go through life. With unresolved trauma, and we either see doctors and get misdiagnosed and take medications that don't treat the symptoms and kind of wander through life uh, disconnected and struggling and not ask. Talks about that journey of unraveling of how I relinquished that control, leaned into mental and spiritual health, and upon completing that, ended up by fate having become the primary caregiver for the last decade of my mother's life, who was diagnosed by a psychiatrist as a narcissist and a sociopath. So, quite a journey of a lot of twists and turns and healing. But the main reason I wrote this was to get out there that you can overcome anything regardless of your circumstances. It's not about who you are or where you came from, and lean into the tools that are out there with mental and spiritual help and continue to work forward. You can overcome anything.
To be honest with you, Mr. Kevin, I sincerely appreciate you for this beautiful book because I have to be honest with you, as a guy who definitely needs this kind of care, this kind of love and attention from a mother, and didn't have that experience, having the experience of an abuse is really, really heavy. There's a difference between someone having this kind of lifestyle. It turns a child into something else. And for you to get through such area in life is very huge. And it's definitely something people actually need to know about. And it is very, very impressive. And also, I would like to dive to the point of the abuse you described. You personally described it, um, the abuse you endured during those time as both physical and emotional, Mr. Kevin. So, how do you think the silent and emotional stars often go unseen or misunderstood, Mr. Kelvin?
Yeah, they really are. And it's kind of why I leaned into writing about this after a lot of reflection and prayer, because regardless of the circumstance, whether it's a 60-second, you
Yes.
really never know when you encounter people in life. You think, oh, that person's just a little off, or they're a little, you know, high strung, they're a little depressed, they're a little arrogant, they're a little this, they're a little that. But no one really looks beyond the surface of what's really happening. And there's so many people out there that if we truly stop and look at those folks and see them for where and meet them where they are, we'd have a deeper understanding and respect and be able to help pull each other along versus judging based on society norms and all that there. And I'm hoping this breaks that paradigm down, because there's a lot of shame and guilt, even though survivors of different types of abuse, men, women, children, adults, there's always some sort of thing, if I only would have done this differently, if it wasn't really my fault, and all those things that are flawed thinking, they perpetuate once and after the abuse happens. And unless you deal with those and get professional help and work through this, it just carries into your life and sprays out into your life, your circumstances, your work, your family, and how you interact with the world, and can lead to devastating consequences for so many people. And that's the biggest thing I see from the scars, silent scars going away with that, is some people, mine was so bad that I completely, from a psychological break, dissociated and didn't remember. I was always uncomfortable around my mother and family, but I didn't really quite understand most of my life. But you never know what someone's going through until you can extend the grace to them and not judge based on what you think they're doing or why they reacted the way they reacted. You never know what's going on below the surface. And I
Definitely, honestly speaking, in the life we find ourselves, we definitely do not have to try our best to judge easily because every single person knows what he or she is passing through. It might be good and it might be really terrible. Our physical part is just the physical part. Every single person has the damage he or she has faced in life. Society needs to bring this kind of trying to get to know someone before one starts to know who the person is really is. As you are as a person, definitely we definitely have to gain some kind of relationship before we know, okay, this person is someone like this and stuff like that. I think that will make our life more better in the life we find ourselves. And also, Mr. Kelvin, as a person who has faced a long-term effects when it comes to child abuse, what do you think are some of the long-term effects of child abuse, especially when it comes from a parent or caregiver, Mr. Kelvin?
Yeah, there's quite a few. I think the biggest one, when you think about a parent, as a child, that's the first person you're supposed to trust. So when that role is not fulfilled, and not only not fulfilled, but when you're physically, verbally, sexually abused, assaulted to the level daily torture, trust is a long-term effect. It's hard to trust other people, guilt and shame and anxiety, things and triggers to this day. Certain sounds or normal things that are normal to people that can still bother me, but those are things that carry through life. But I think the biggest one is probably trust, and then guilt and shame that go with that. Because when it's never been talked about, you just kind of carry that, even though it's not legitimate to feel that way, unresolved. That's just what you carry out of that. And you find it really hard if the person that gave birth to you, that you're supposed to trust the most, is a monster and harms you from an infant on. Truly a struggle for people, regardless of whether it was long term or just a 60-second interaction of trauma. It leaves its marks.
I totally understand this, Mr. Kevin, because the mark is going to definitely be there. And that is why every single one of us as a person, no matter what we face in our childhood, we have to have the sense of letting go because it will be like a load we are carrying on ourselves in coming years, and it will definitely be damaging us in many ways. Having such situation, every single person knows what he or she has faced during the past time, and we definitely need to carry on because having such experience really cause a lot of damage, a lot of trauma, a lot of anxiety that it is definitely not easy to go through. And it is very beautiful that you actually go through it and you actually conquered it. And it's something that is very inspiring to also bring it in a book that will definitely help anybody who is also going through something like this. And you also write about survival. You write survivor is not, you write not just about survivor, but about thriving. What do you think it's mean to truly thrive after trauma, Mr. Kevin?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And a lot of people just kind of exist and try to survive, whether they've had significant trauma like me or just having a difficult time or moment in life. And I got a visual that I've worked with or used. Someone taught me that if not unresolved or dealing with things, it's kind of like if you took your hand, Timmy, and squeezed it together as hard as you could and held it for a couple seconds. And you feel how tight that is. When you release it, how good it feels when the blood flows through out of your hand when you open your hand back up. That's relinquishing that control and allowing yourself to move forward with that. But most people are kind of, whether it's how you're raised, whether it's society or just flawed perceptions, think you have to kind of go through life, close down, and relinquish that control and try something different and better. I have an old saying, if you want different and better, you got to try something different and better. And so many people will just keep going back to the same go-to, whether it's suffering in silence, it's depression, untreated or medicated by a doctor, self-medicated through addiction, just never really get to the root of what's wrong and why they're unhappy. The body actually keeps stores these memories and things in it. There's scientific research that your body, when you go through things, stores these things. And until you can recognize and open up and start leaning into tools to working and healing, not only the body, mind, and soul, I kind of call this the tripod of life, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual side of it. Well, if one of the legs is shorter or unstable, the tripod will fall over. So you have to find a balance that works for you. And there's no like one silver bullet for everyone, but you have to embrace that holistic approach on that. And that doesn't mean there's varying forms of spirituality where, there can be Christianity, other types of faiths. Globally, there's all sorts of things, but you have to find leveraging resources and physically, there's things with exercise and other things to help move and get your body all that. Otherwise, there's physical health ailments and things that were coming into that with me. There's things that I've had health vested themselves that uh, are directly related to untreated aspects of this thing. And then now that I've worked through this, those are getting better as well.
That is the beauty of trying to let go of those mental, those load that has got into the body. When someone starts to release it, then one will start to get better, no matter how the circumstances it is. As you said earlier, doing the researches, you have the mental, the mind, and the body. Every single one of it works hand in hand, and if one of it is not definitely functioning well, it definitely affects others. So we definitely need to work on each of and every one of it to definitely have that sense of holistic healing that will definitely help every single one of our body so that we can live a more fulfilled, calm, and happy life. And that is what we definitely work. No matter the trauma, no matter what one faces, it could be abuse, it could be pain, it could be molest. I used to usually admit when I was very young, my mom usually flogged me. We African people, our mother usually discipline us a lot. So no matter how little it is, we just have to know how we can definitely walk through it and definitely heal those pains so that we can definitely have the sense of embracement to become more better in the life we find ourselves. And also, you said
Yeah.
something very beautiful about your mother. You also said it earlier when we begin this discussion. You speak of your mother as a psychopathic. How do you come to understand her behavior, and how did you that shift your relationship to your own healing, Mr. Kelvin?
As I remembered the abuse, I knew that was horrible, but then I worked quite a bit through therapy, through EMDR, which is a process that helps your subconscious mind kind of blocks you from things that could harm you. But what I learned from that, and I'll get back to that question, but one thing I wanted to add to that is why people struggle, whatever age that you have these type of traumatic events, your mind stops socially developing. So at 4 years old, I haven't fully developed these social skills and things that people in the family interactions. So it's not just about remembering trauma, but you kind of have a limited toolbox because you haven't learned how to emotionally overcome day-to-day things and stuff and things like that and healthy interactions because you kind of hit a brick wall at that point in time in your life with that. But where I really find, getting back to your question of with my mother, was basically Wall fell in and had to go take them on as wards and be the power of attorney and care for them. That's when those me having to be control of her health, her lodging, and everything. She was hospitalized for psychological and was able to get in front of a dual board certified geriatric psychiatrist who interviewed her and came up with that diagnosis. While I always knew there was something horribly, horribly wrong with someone that would do some of these things to a child, independent or assisted care facilities here in the United States would want to take on someone with that psychological diagnosis of a sociopath. Quite a challenge, and how I dealt with her didn't change as much as I did as an adult. Whether I was more informed, and as you read the book, you'll see I kind of almost had to. It's like playing a 3D chess with someone because someone like that that's a sociopath is typically, as you look at other people like Ted Bundy and other famous, infamous, more the right word, sociopaths, are highly intelligent as she was. You almost had to anticipate and think where she was going on some of these things. And that's kind of how I spent that last 10 years as kind of a chess match, tennis match, chess match, back and forth, trying to mitigate and stay ahead of that to limited success. So that's how I came about that part, and actually had to, because of my interactions with her, go back for a second round of skills. The first round was the remembering and the process, dealing with her as an adult, knowing that diagnosis and trying to be her caregiver for someone that was such a horrible person. I had to take myself back into therapy to help build other skills than to try to just keep fighting and plowing through because I found myself regressing during this journey of the last few years of dealing with her to where I had to step back and go and work on those skills. And not only working with that, but working spiritually with that through my faith and things to understand and work through that there. I had a pastor once tell me there, you talk about a mother and a child relationship, that's a sacred, regardless around the world or whatever country you're in. But he explained it in this way, your mother didn't fulfill the role of mother by meeting your needs and caring for you. So you don't have to treat her in these last years as a son like would a doting mother that took care of you, step around them, or would you have to go deep into this mother-son relationship? But that kind of really polarized with me that, you know, you need to extend the same human grace back to that. Even though with her diagnosis, she truly didn't register a lot of the human empathy forms we did on that. Those two things of going back to therapy and leaning into that kind of helped me get through.
Yes, I'm definitely glad, Mr. Kelvin, that you definitely get through it. And I do know that it is not
Yeah.
easy, Mr. Kelvin, because, after your mother being hospitalized and you realize your mom was diagnosed with something like this, it is definitely not easy. It is definitely not easy to hear that your beloved mother has this type of issue, which cause a lot of issue that cause this kind of abuse or stuff like that's happened during those recent years. It's definitely not easy, and that will definitely also make you as a father to become a better person for your children, because when a person has such experience, when someone has kids, will make sure that his kids doesn't face such situations. Will make sure his or her kid are cared for, are being loved, are being seen. And that is the beauty of some experience like that. And I'm definitely sure that that has definitely improved you to definitely become a better person for your children as well. And also, I would like to go to the
Yes.
people who are definitely survivors. Why do you think so many survivors? Because this usually happen. Even as a person, you said this from the beginning. Why do you think so many survivors remain silent for years?
All right. Well, I touched earlier on it, but I think lack of trust, shame, and guilt, and depending on it, especially as a child, because your developmental skills do that. But even as adults, you say that because there's an inherent shame and guilt that goes with that that impacts your self-worth, and you don't know what you don't know, and you just try to cope and get through. What I would say to folks that are struggling through that, that regardless of the circumstances, I strongly encourage you to read it. Well, I had decades of extreme documented abuse. It doesn't matter. It could be 50 seconds of abuse have the same impact as mine. There's no measuring stick. But unresolved, you reinforce those negative thought processes of guilt and shame and not sharing, and I'm not self-worth, lack of trust. You got to lean in and be open to change. You can't expect different and better results if you don't try different and better. So people get into the same pattern. So lean into mental health and professionals and spiritual. Read the book and reach out to me. I've got, I know you'll put it up, but I've got a website. I'm going to be blogging and talking about this, sharing missions like you. But no one is alone in this. But based on the types of abuse and when it happened to you and how it impacts you, every person feels completely isolated on an island and doesn't have the trust and the fortitude to want to move forward. They think they don't matter. I want to say to every survivor out there, you matter, and it doesn't take a whole lifetime. Don't take a whole lifetime. I'm 60-year old and still dealing with this. You can get different and better, but you have to do that, and you can't do it alone. You can't white knuckle and try to just keep doing the same things. You've got to surrender. I would also say to that last point, Timmy, is if anyone has ever fallen and broken an arm, broken a leg, torn an ACL, twisted an ankle, got a cut on your head, you wouldn't wander through life bleeding with a cut on your head or limp around with a broken leg. But if you're not asking or thinking you matter enough to get help, that's exactly what you're doing if you're not trying to overcome this trauma in your life. It's no different than not going to the doctor and trying to walk around on a broken leg. It's not sustainable and it will catch up with you.
Definitely. The healing starts from you. And definitely, it is very necessary. No matter the kind of damage you've had during our historic time, we definitely need to work on it. I am so surprised that you are now old enough and you are still definitely working through this to also, get through this situation you've passed through because it is not easy. Honestly speaking, I did not experience, but I do know that from a person who should clearly care and love, it is not easy. It is really tough. And that is the beauty. We definitely need to heal, and the healing starts from us. We need to work on ourselves, and you can definitely do that. No matter where you are, no matter what you are going through right now, you are not alone. You can definitely get there and get the healing and become a better person. That will definitely be improve and also be a better thing for the community we find ourselves. I want to sincerely thank you about that. And also I want to honestly thank you about the lovely book Sociomom. It is very, very important for people to be aware of this and to also be improved in these areas in life. There is a question I normally ask during the end of the show, Mr. Kevin. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mr. Kelvin, what do you think that thing will be, Mr. Kelvin?
I think maybe it's one or two things, but I would say number one is I wrote this not because I wanted to put this horrible mess of my life out there for everyone to look at and judge, but part of what I talked about is being silent, you think you don't matter, but I really want everyone to realize you do matter, whatever's happened in your life, and you can change the outcome. Read through this, your life can change, but only if you're willing to take a step forward. And regardless of where you are with, spirituality in your life, put in your path and will continue to be put in path, but you have to choose to lean into that and not lean on your own understanding and the way you've always done stuff because you will not get different results. And lean in to eliminate the stigma. Mental health is health, period. You wouldn't, back, the pandemic, if you had COVID, you wouldn't sit around and say, oh, I got COVID and not try to get some sort of treatment. If you have, I wrote this to put this out and I encourage people to read about this in the book, but you you have to lean in and treat it the same way. Mental health is health. It's worth it. The last thing I would leave with that is it is a journey, not a destination. In this immediate culture, I want to see how many hits I get on a video. I want to go to the gym and work out and lift this much weight or run this fast. I want to be the best at this. This is a journey, not a destination. But I promise you, if you lean in and start, being open to act, leverage the other resources and the support, you'll be able to enjoy the grace and love that you deserve in life that is no fault of your own. People ask about triggers and memories and things. Everybody can probably relate to seeing a scary movie or reading a scary book, and you got to a part that kind of frightens you in that movie first time you watched it. If you saw it again sometime later, you knew it was coming, it was still a little scary. That's how this journey is. It's kind of over and over, but over time, and you start building more in. But grace and love is out there. You have to open your hand and let go of the control of all this you're holding in, the shame, the guilt, the lack of trust, and start. Start with somewhere, get in therapy, find your spirituality, and do that. I have some ideas and thoughts in the book of what I did, but it's no measuring stick, but you're not something you're just going to do real quick and it's just going to turn around tomorrow because it's taken years to get you to this point of understanding. But once you open it up and do that, you will see exponential growth in yourself. Ever give up? That would be where I would leave that, Timmy.
I want to also honestly, sincerely thank you for this beautiful insight, for you bringing this out, because there are hundreds, thousands of people facing the same situation. And it is very encouraging for you to come out and speak of it. I think it's a big encouragement to others who have also faced it because we can't keep it within ourselves. It won't help. It will never help. And it is something that will definitely continue to be of a wound within ourselves. We definitely need to let people know and also encourage people because the healing starts from us. We are only the one that can know how we could solve the healing, and we're also the only one that can know how we could develop ourselves because the load is there and we are the one that can get through this load. We can only tell you how you can do it, but you are the main person that can definitely become a better person. I also honestly want to sincerely thank you for the time, the opportunity you've given me today. Thank you so much for this beautiful episode, Mr. Kelvin.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm an admirer of your work and I appreciate how you're reaching out and finding out to try to heal others in many ways and like this. And I'm a big fan of that of you and look forward to hopefully sharing this with you and your viewers. It's time to live your life and thrive, not just survive.
All
Thank you.
right. All right. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Kelvin. Bye bye.
Thank you, Tim. Bye bye.